Now. Oh.
Right, good evening, finally. I'm really sorry about the late start. We had a technical issue because we had too many people lined up to present and Teams wouldn't let us on. We should have practiced that before we tried to start. I'm Helen Evans, I'm the Chief Executive of Network Homes. Just going to introduce the event, but first I'll say a bit about myself. I've been working in social housing for decades now. I hate to admit how long because it makes me feel old. Firstly in local authorities, then more latterly in arm's length management organisations, and finally in network homes. This is our first virtual event of this kind. It's building on the pop-up events that we were doing in person around our various schemes. And obviously those events had to be suspended because of the COVID pandemic, but we wanted to try and find a new way of doing it using the technology that we've all become more accustomed to over time. This is a live broadcast, which means that you can see us talking to you, but we can't see you talking back to us. We will experiment with different platforms if the event goes well and people want us to repeat this kind of event. But for this first time, we're using something that we've used before with the people who work for us. And actually, we haven't had any of these technical difficulties previously. But as I said, we're open to feedback about whether there are better systems that we can use for the future. We are amateurs, we're not professional broadcasters here. So please do be patient if we have some sort of clunky exchanges or further technical difficulties handing over between ourselves. We've had quite a lot of questions on Slido in advance of the event, and all of those questions are going to be answered in writing and the answers posted back onto Slido. We will also, after we finished all the introductions, open a live question and answer for the event, and we will be answering questions until 7:30. There may be things, if they are highly individual or highly complex, that we're not able to answer on the spot. So if that does occur, we will get an answer to you after the event. And finally, I'd like to say that we don't have any of our board members here, apart from myself. I am a board member, but we have 11 others. But they have expressed an interest, particularly the chair, in being part of this kind of event in future. So again, if it goes well, we'll hope to introduce you to our board chair and others in future. So I'm now going to ask the team to introduce themselves, and they're going to hand over one to the other so that we don't have to keep bobbing back to me to go to the next person. And I'd like to start with David.
Thank you, Helen. My name's David Gooch. I'm the Executive Director of Development at Network Homes. I'm responsible for the delivery of our new homes programme across London and Hertfordshire. That work involves acquiring land and buildings, scheme design, planning permission, tract procurement, construction, sales and aftercare, and also look after the build to rent and building safety teams. I've got a fair bit more I would have said to you, but I think I'm going to cut that short now and pass you to Fiona Deal.
Hello everybody, so yes, Fiona Deal.
Network Homes. I'm responsible for the delivery of our new homes programme across London and Hertfordshire. That work involves acquiring land and buildings, scheme design, planning permission, tract procurement, construction, sales and aftercare, and building teams. I've got a fair bit more I would have said to you, but I think I'm going to cut that short now and pass you to Fiona Deal.
So I think you've had my face up while David's been speaking, so obviously a bit of a delay. So hello everybody, I'm Fiona Deal, I'm the Executive Director of People and Technology. There's a lot of feedback. Can people hear me?
Scheme design, planning permission, tract procurement, construction, sales and aftercare, and building. We'll get it more.
Okay, I'm going to try again. So Fiona Deal, Executive Director of People and Technology. So my teams work very much on the inside of the organisation. So I head up the Human Resources team, the IT team, our Business Transformation team, which is about digital transformation, and also our Facilities team, which looks after our offices. But it's lovely to be here, thank you. And I'm going to hand over to Jamie Ratcliffe, who needs to unmute himself.
Sorry, that's a typical thing that happens with teams. Sorry, my name's Jamie Ratcliffe. I'm the Executive Director for Business Performance and Partnerships. And I just wanted to say how excited I am about this event that we're doing today, not just for today, but in terms of how it's a step towards improving our communications with residents. I accept that that's never going to be something we can ever be too good at. But I think there's a number of things we can do this year, which will also contribute to increasing residents' trust in us in terms of improving the clarity and tone of our communications to make sure we're clear, compassionate and honest, that improve what we like to call the running commentary, which is keeping residents updated throughout the processes that they're involved in through digital and practical measures, and doing more to tell residents who are interested in the breadth of activities that we're doing across Network Homes. And I'll pass over to Jerry Doherty.
Thank you, Jamie. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jerry Doherty. I'm the Executive Director for Customer Services. That means I'm responsible for about half the company. We have about 500 staff. So the areas I'm responsible for are housing management, technical services, estate services, and our contact centre. I think one of the biggest challenges for me over the last couple of months is delivering services that are both safe to ensure their safety to all our customers, our staff and our contractors. And I think one of the challenges that we've got going forward now is to try and mobilise the service and get all our non-urgent repairs undertaken. Going forward, we are launching a repairs or a customer portal, and you will have already received a letter advising you to sort of log on. And we're sending more letters out over the coming weeks, encouraging people to use our customer portal, because we want to develop online services such as booking repairs without the need to contact us. So now I'm just going to pass over to Peter Benz.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Peter Benz. I'm the Executive Director of Finance at Network Homes, with responsibility for our financial, budgetary, business planning, rent accounting, scheme appraisal and treasury management activities, as well as leasehold services. I'm particularly happy to be here, as I'm keen to better understand our residents' concerns and preference to be able to better direct resources in our budget and planning activities. I'm going to hand over to Tabitha.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Peter. My name is Tabitha Kassam. I'm the Executive Director of Governance and I'm the Company Secretary for the Network Homes Group. I'm responsible at Network, akin to Fiona, for some internal teams, namely the legal team, the insurance team, and of course the Company Secretary arrangements. I'm also the liaison officer for Network Homes with SW9 Community Housing, one of our subsidiaries in the group. So I act as a liaison to support SW9 in that relationship. In respect of a bit about me, I'm coming back to the theme of this session and strengthening residents' trust in us. I'm particularly looking forward to this year working with residents and colleagues to try and use our legislation to enable us to be more open and transparent with you. Legislation can often be considered a stop for us to be more open and transparent, and I'm really looking forward to trying to use that to be more open. That's it from me until for now, and I'm going to pass over to Ed Badker, Director of Building Safety Project Team. And Ed's just muted.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ed Badker. I am the Building Safety Director in Network Homes. The three things I was going to say, well, first of all, what I love about Network is, in terms of my job, is creating new homes for you, our residents. It's a great honour and a privilege almost to be able to do that. My proudest achievement over the last year has been setting up the building safety team. This is a new team in Network, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, so I won't go into more details on that now. And what do I want to achieve this year? I want to be on site remediating any defects that we find so that we can bring this situation to a close and people can get on and live their normal lives. So I'm not sure who I'm passing on to next. I should have checked.
Gabriel.
Gabriel.
Yeah, sorry, Gabriel.
Thank you very much, Ed. So my name is Gabriel Kodjo. I'm the Director of Housing for Network Homes. And sorry, am I on? Yes. So I'm the Director of Housing for Network Homes, and I report directly to Jerry Doherty, who you heard from earlier. So I'm responsible for housing management and our frontline staff with respect to estates management, neighbourhood management, and a variety of other areas. It's been a long journey here at Network Homes. You know, we pride ourselves in providing a first-class service. We don't always get it right. You know, our relationship with our residents is key, and we strive to continually keep them informed as to what we are doing. You know, there are big challenges ahead, you know, particularly around antisocial behaviour in this day and age, and we're working very hard, you know, to manage that, and also to manage the expectations from you, our residents. Thank you very much. I think now it's to Michael Durant.
Hi, good evening all. Thanks for having me. I'm Michael Durant. I'm the Director of Technical Services for Network Homes. So that's responsible for all responsive repair services, voids and lettings of our homes, our planned maintenance services, and our cleaning and grounds services. I'll be talking in a little more detail in a moment with regard to the approach we've taken to the current pandemic and remobilising our services to you. So for now, I'll pass you over to Caroline.
I don't think Caroline's on the call, so we might come to her in a minute.
So could we go back to Jamie then, please?
So we'll come to Caroline in just a minute, maybe after we've gone through a few things. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the fifth strategic objective that some of you may be aware our board approved in January in relation to improving our residents' trust in us. I've only been at Network for 14 months, but this is the thing I'm proudest of since getting here. A while ago, we got a clear steer from our board that they wanted more focus on resident engagement and greater transparency, but the development of the objective and the associated actions was led by a group of engaged residents, and we're still working on them with it in terms of developing some performance measures and also working out exactly how we can implement that. And in the last meeting we had of that, it was really interesting to hear how their own trust in us as an organisation had grown throughout the year. And I'm really keen, and all of us are, that we want to be able to transfer that to as many other residents as possible. We did a big consultation exercise, and there were well over 500 responses in terms of what does trust mean to our residents. And it was really clear from that that for most people, trust is about us doing what we said we were going to do and meeting our service responsibilities. And there's rightly lots of questions that have come in on that on Slido. But we also hope that by being radically transparent and communicating more and better, we can also help. In terms of the Slido questions, as Helen said, we've responded to them on Slido itself, and some of them are very specific issues. So what we wanted to do was pick out some general themes that had come through from them to cover off lots of them, and we'll then open up to general questions and answers through Teams. If there's any questions that are slow coming through, I'll pick out a couple from Slido that we can go for a more detailed response. I think, as Helen said, the live Q&A are being moderated. So if you post something that's very specific to you or very complex, we might message you back to say we'll pick it up on an individual basis. But we're definitely happy and here to take any difficult, challenging or general questions that people want to pose. So in terms of themes, we're first going to have Gabriel, who is going to talk about our approach to in-state inspections and antisocial behaviour.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jamie. So, estate inspections and antisocial behaviour. At Network Homes, it's our aim to regularly visit all of our estates and blocks to ensure that our communal areas are kept clean and safe for residents to go about their business on a day-to-day basis. We have a cleaning and grounds maintenance contract to operate on most estates on a daily basis, and they are monitored very carefully to ensure that standards are maintained at the correct levels. Now, in this day and age, you know, the biggest challenge for us here at Network Homes with regards to the management of our estates is around antisocial behaviour. And increasingly, we are getting so many complaints about non-residents. These are people who are coming onto our estates, going into our bin rooms, going into our communal areas and committing acts of antisocial behaviour. Our estate inspection process aims to identify where this is happening and then ensure that we take the appropriate action. There are a number of estates in and around London, which we regard as hotspots, where we do more regular estate inspections. They happen almost on a weekly basis. And that gives residents confidence to know that we are out and about, that we are able to monitor and record when these events happen. And Jamie earlier on talked about trust and transparency, and this has been the key to how we try to tackle antisocial behaviour, reaching out to residents, giving them confidence that when they report something to us, that we take action. Of course, there have been times where we've let ourselves down, but by and large, we aim to go back to residents, let them know what we're doing, keep them informed, of our progress. Sometimes it's very difficult, very challenging when we're not able to identify perpetrators, particularly those who come from the outside. But we are very clear that where our residents commit antisocial behaviour and where they are identified, we do have strong processes in place to be able to deal with them. And we work collaboratively with the courts, with local authorities and with the police to make sure there's a joined up approach to how we manage ASB. Now, I hope that doesn't sound too hard, that here we are talking about the police and local authorities. We do try to use mediation. We do try and bring residents together, where there is a dispute, particularly if it's a neighbour dispute around noise, which predominantly is around children, perhaps. And particularly in this lockdown phase, it will be no surprise to you, people being at home, kids at home, active throughout the day, and there might be other residents or NHS people who still have to go to work. That causes an issue, that causes friction. But we do pride ourselves in the ability to do mediation in order to bring people together, better understanding, of what's going on. Thank you.
And Ed's going to talk to us about building safety.
If I can pick up from where Gabriel left off about our residents, and actually the first thing I wanted to say, that our residents' health and safety is our top priority. Gabriel spoke about ASB, and I'm going to speak a bit more about our buildings rather than people. So it's going to be a bit more about the built environment rather than the people. And sticking with the health and safety point, the first thing I'd like to say is I'm really proud of what Network's done. If we weren't the first, we were one of the first companies to set up a dedicated building safety team in the country, and the investment in that on behalf of the organisation is substantial, and I think that sort of reflects the organisational values really. So the first thing is health and safety is our top priority. The second thing is our approach to buildings where that there may be safety concerns. We are following very much the government guidance, and that's been issued post-Grenfell, mainly during 2019, but also in January 2020, the government consolidated a lot of its advice into one single advice note, and we've been guided by that throughout. So our approach to building safety is very much based on a risk-based approach, concentrating mainly on buildings over 18 metres. And some of you residents out there may have had communications from us because you're in those buildings. Some of you might actually be in buildings below 18 metres. And there is a little bit of where we know we have a potential concern in buildings below 18 metres, we are investigating it, but we're not able to do a blanket approach to buildings below 18 metres. Quite simply, there aren't the people, the professionals, the chartered fire engineers available to do that. So our approach is very much risk-based, and it's very much associated with aligned with what the government is suggesting we do. So where are we today? Well, we've completed investigations on about 15 buildings, 15 developments. 3 of those have a clean bill of health, and 12 have various levels of defects. Some are quite extensive, some are quite easy to fix. We've been distracted or delayed a little bit by the COVID and the government restrictions, because by now we would have been progressing with a lot of those the developments where we have defects. We would be more progressed, but we are not. We've got 3 developments where we're still continuing with investigations, and that will leave us with 7 developments to investigate. And at the moment, we're on site with remediation on 3 developments. We've got a 4th, which is due to start in the next month. And I can assure you that this is getting these buildings corrected is our top priority. Looking at our approach, where we have found defects, I suppose going back to what I said a few minutes ago, health and safety is our first concern. So if we find a building that has a problem, we will consult with a chartered fire engineer, an expert in this area, who will advise us about what to do in the short term and what to do in the long term. So some of you may have seen a change in fire strategy on your development, and that will mainly, well, not mainly, that will have definitely been driven by a chartered fire engineer, an expert in the field. Once we've consulted with them, we'll discuss that with the fire brigade as well. A series of resident communications letters will go out advising you of what we've found and what's going to happen in the short term and what's going to happen in the long term. In terms of the actual remediation of those problems, our first plan is to pursue the third parties who are responsible for the problem in the first place. Now, that primarily is our contractors and designers, and I spend a lot of my time every week talking to lawyers and contractors and actually getting them to come to the table about rectifying the situation. And we're also talking to various insurance companies and warranty companies. In addition to that, we are going to apply to the government fund in September, when it's there's a new fund we anticipate is going to come out in September, which is primarily for leaseholders to support them for the remediation costs. At this stage, I probably should say a big thank you to Jamie and Helen, who've been lobbying government and have actually, I think, changed almost, it's difficult to say, but I think they've changed government policy to the extent that the leaseholder support from government now is explicit. And I think without that effort, we wouldn't have succeeded in that. The last thing I was going to say, in a number of occasions, we're not the building owner. And I know some residents get frustrated by this, that they want us to do something and we're unable to do so. If we don't own the building, we can't do investigations. We can't get these EWS1 forms for you. But what we are doing, we are writing to the building owners, we're writing to the freeholders. And, I've seen some correspondence that, it's pretty robust and pretty to the point. And what we're finding, some developers are more responsive than others. What has happened in the last few days, actually, is we've sent something pretty direct to some people, and we've actually had 2 positive responses. So I think we are looking after your interests. So if you are in a development that is not owned by Network, rest assured that we are going to continue to pursue this. So that's me finished. I think I'll pass over to Tabitha.
Thanks, Ed. So I've been asked just to talk to you briefly about Network's governance arrangements, specifically resident board membership. There was a question on the Slido which has been answered, so I'm not going to repeat that. And also, I suspect you don't really want to know about the detailed governance arrangements of Network Homes. So what I would just emphasise that the role of the board member is a critical position within the business and governance arrangements of any organisation. It carries personal liabilities where in certain circumstances, directors or board members can themselves be pursued personally for the activities of the company. And so it does mean taking on the responsibility for the governance and the viability of that business. At the current time, these appointments at Network are based upon an assessment of the skills and experience required for that role. and the best person for that role, regardless of their resident status or tenure, would be appointed. We strongly believe in the value of resident engagement, but primarily the requisite skills to be able to carry out that role must determine who is appointed. It is our hope that residents will apply for board member roles and be successful in those applications, and we're developing ways in which we would hope to be able to support those candidates. Last year, we appointed 3 residents as voting members to our Customer Services Committee, or the CSC as we sometimes call it. Although the CSC is not our full board, it does have delegated authority from the board. This means that it can take decisions on behalf of the board in areas that the board has delegated to it. Such areas relate to our customer-facing activities, such as repairs, performance, complaints, and resident engagement activities. We also have 2 resident panels, one in London and one representing Hertford and out of London. These resident panels report directly into the CSC, and we've therefore embedded our resident involvement and engagement within the formal governance arrangements of Network. Further, we have our subsidiary board down in SW9, where we have a 3/4 resident membership. Critically, it is part of our succession planning for the board positions that we encourage and support our existing committee members to apply for forthcoming board positions. Being committee members, some of our residents will indeed be in a good position to apply for those roles. This is alongside continuing to advertise these positions publicly so that residents can apply. I have been working with colleagues to plan and provide training to residents who are interested in board positions generally, but also at Network Homes. And this, we hope, will ensure that they have the right skills to apply for the roles when they next become available. We're not able to guarantee such appointments, of course, but we'll be doing what we can to support those applications. And I'm now going to pass over to Michael Durant to talk to you a bit more about our repairs.
Thanks, Tabitha. So I'll briefly talk to you about our approach to repairs, cleaning and ground services and our voids and letting services in the current climate. So from early March, we engaged with all of our partner contractors to understand what contingency plans they had in place to manage their resource should the worst happen and operatives be affected by COVID-19. So furthermore, we reviewed all of their risk assessments and method statements to ensure that they were able to, where required, carry out emergency works if people were affected. We established protocols with our partners where we engaged daily to report on all types of works that they were completing and that the resource levels of their operatives and the supply chain were being maintained. So this applied to all of our repairs, voids and letting services, our cleaning and ground services, planned maintenance and mechanical and electrical services, so that we were consistent in our approach with all of our contractors. So thankfully, this early preparation meant that we were as prepared as we could be for services being locked down from the 23rd of March. Due to all of our services needing to move to emergency only, this meant our partners were forced to furlough in some instances up to 50% of their staff. So for repairs, we paused some almost 2,000 non-urgent works, communicated with you guys, the residents, and went to an emergency only service. In our repairs service, we complete 40,000 plus repairs a year. So through lockdown, we've still managed to maintain a good service level with all of our emergency repairs completing 2,500 repairs in the 12 weeks we've been locked down. Through June, our partner contractors are working through all of those 2,000 orders that we did put on hold, putting the most urgent orders first. We anticipate that the majority of these repairs will be completed in June, such that our normal repair services of appointing non-urgent orders can resume from the 1st of July. For our voids and letting services, due to our local authority partners suspending some of the advertising of the properties that we look to house residents, we did have to move also to an emergency only basis, but due to the relationships we have, we were able to continue to let those properties to residents of most in need. So with our void services, we let almost 1,000 properties a year, but due to lockdown and still with those most in need, we were able to home 89 new families, but all of our voids and letting services have now returned to normal, I'm pleased to say. With our cleaning services through lockdown, we actually increased the levels of cleaning to our older persons and key worker sites. As Jerry alluded to, some were up to 2 hours every 2 hours and 7 days a week, simply to say now that we are able to reduce to almost a normal service level with our ground services. But what we did need to do, because of the amount of cleaning that did need to be done, is reduce the gardening down. This will, of course, now continue from the 6th of July. Happy to take more questions as we go, because I appreciate some of these services are those that are most in need to our residents, and hopefully that gives you some feedback to what we're doing now. And I'll pass you back to Jamie.
Thanks, Michael. We'll go straight into questions now. Apologies for taking us a little while to get here. This is a learning curve for us as well. Given we started 5 or 6 minutes late, I'll run us on 5 or 6 minutes late if residents want to stay with us for that, and we'll do our best to get through as many questions as possible. The first one that's been published is one for Jerry, which is somebody who's living in a small flat and wants to be able to work from the communal area. So Jerry, could you talk to us about our approach of reopening communal areas?
Within our sheltered schemes, we took the decision to close the communal areas because of the peak of the pandemic. We did have regrettably a large number of residents succumb to COVID-19. We had 24 residents across our schemes die of the disease. We put in measures to sort of improve safety, which was to try and keep the building as locked down as possible. So non-urgent repairs were ceased, all planned works were ceased, and we introduced cleaning of the communal areas in sort of common parts, more about the walkways and the doors every 2 hours, 7 days a week. Rehowever, you know, it is clear that the pandemic is sort of moving to its next stage, and like everybody else, we are considering how to remobilise. So in the next week or so, it's an issue that we will be reconsidering and sort of redesigning some of our communal areas so that we can maintain social distancing across all our schemes.
Thanks, Jerry. I think the team are just working through questions, so if anyone has any further questions they want to send to us, that would be great. But for now, I'll just go back to a question that came in on Slido, with a very innovative use of emojis in relation to rats, but is not an amusing issue at all in relation to Brindley Court, which Gabriel will talk about. I know it's been distressing for a number of residents there, and it's been going on for some time, but Gabriel's going to say about what we're doing to address that.
Thanks very much, Jamie. Yes, it's a terrible situation, and in the best of times. We are aware of the issues down at Brindley, and it's something that we're grappling with at this moment in time. And it's not just a matter of the infestation. The rats are deeply ingrained within the building and the drainage system. So whilst we are treating and baiting on a regular basis, to get to the core of the issue is about having a look at the drains and getting to see what's going on there. There's one bin room in particular where there's a big infestation, and we've discovered that there's a hole leading from one of the drains, and that's where they're coming up. And so that's the area that we're concentrating on. But it's more than just an issue of baiting, and this is something that we have to bring in, you know, the planned maintenance team to have a look at the drains to see where we can put non-return valves and put that throughout the estate. One of the difficulties is that we have to be working a lot better with our partners. You know, Westminster Council are also involved in the management of that estate, and we're working closely with them so that we have a joined up approach so that we do what is necessary to eradicate the problem, and that's our number one aim. So we are aware of the issues, we're actively working towards rectifying it, and that's going to happen until we eradicate or manage the problem so that it does not impinge upon the day-to-day activities of our residents.
Okay, we've got another question coming, which I think is going to be for Gabriel, and it's in relation to how do we go about, I think, reporting loud music at 2 o'clock in the morning if we can't exactly pinpoint the actual neighbour. Could you take that one, Gabriel?
Yes, of course. Noise nuisance, as I said earlier on, is a big issue in this day and age, and particularly where people are playing loud music in their flats. And in these circumstances, it's called the local authority. The local authority have powers, you know, that Network Home doesn't. So it's to ring the local authority. They have noise patrols. They have the equipment to detect where the noise is coming from. And as well as contacting them, yes, of course, contact Network Home so that we can also carry out investigations. And this is where we may canvass a block to find out where the music is coming from. So there's the twin track approach through the local authority as well as Network Homes. In some cases where the noise happens, it might happen during the daytime. You know, we are actively going out. We do have access to various noise equipment where we ourselves can examine where the noise is coming from and also to detect how loud it is. But essentially, we have to work with our local authority colleagues in order to detect, and if it does go beyond the legal limits, then take where the enforcement action where necessary. And of course, if the local authority take enforcement action, this does constitute a breach of our tenancy and our lease agreements, and that will then allow us to take direct action against those particular individuals. So it is an issue that we do take seriously.
Thanks, Gabriel. We've also got a question in terms of street maintenance. I don't know if that's one that Michael could pick up in terms of the division of what we're responsible in terms of grounds maintenance and what the local authority is.
Thanks, Jamie. Yeah, street maintenance, yes, difficult to comment across every scheme, but we are responsible in our larger estates for the street maintenance, where our cleaning and grounds maintenance services would pick up, as it says, all external cleaning, grounds and gardening services. For street maintenance, that you may well say like street lighting, tarmac repairs, infrastructure services that are between the ground. Again, the distinction would be where local authority get involved onto highways would be the local authority, and on our side it would be us.
Thanks, Michael. The next question that's been published, I'm not quite sure what the question is. It's around disabled residents unable to get in and out of the building, which is a statement, but I don't know if there's anyone who wants to wave at me who might know what that is about or wants to answer it. If not, I'm afraid if you want to send in a bit more information on that, we can try and answer the question in more detail. So the next one that's come up then is, does Network Homes pay for the Locator system? And if so, do they think it's fit for purpose in this day and age? Don't know if Jerry or Gabriel wants to take that, or Michael. Michael.
Thanks again, Jamie. Yeah. I have to say the Locator system does appear dated. The challenge is because so many, it is the chosen partner of so many authorities. It's one that has the widest scope of all of our letting services, and being able to get our properties out there. But there are other initiatives if you're looking to move, such as Home Swapper. But yes, to answer that question around Locator, it is something that we have raised, and it's something we're looking to engage residents more in terms of how we let our properties in different ways.
Thanks, Michael. The person who commented about people being unable to get in and out has come back and said it's in relation to failed lifts. So I don't know if Jerry could say something. Obviously, we don't know where you live, and nor would we comment on that, but just generally about our experience with lifts and what we've been doing to maintain and keep them in good working order.
Thanks, Jamie. We did have a situation last year where a lift went down for a number of weeks, and it was necessary to actually temporarily move some people. We do have monitoring systems in all of our lifts, so that we can tell on the computer that the lift's gone out of service before we actually get calls into our contact centre. So we look at that all the time and raise orders to our contractors. There are one or two sites that there has been some unacceptably long periods of time that have gone into like 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks on occasions. There are some of our smaller blocks, but we do recognise that, you know, people got difficulties getting up. Even 2 or 3 flights of stairs is difficult. But it's something we look at every day. We get a dedicated officer looking at the sort of lift reports, and I get a report every Monday highlighting which lifts are going to be out for a longer period, so that I can make sure that we push forward maintenance.
Thanks, Jerry. The next question we've got, I think, might be from the same person in relation to having problems with lifts where they live. This is, the organisation talks about equality and inclusion. Why is it that disabled and chronically sick people are languishing in properties that are detrimental to their health. I think I could just say a little bit about the equality, diversity and inclusion 10-point plan that we've just published, and if anyone else wants to come in on it, please wave to me. So this obviously is no relief to people who are experiencing problems getting in and out of their properties, but we've been considering seriously for some time what we can do in terms of tangible steps to address equality, diversity and inclusion, and that's across the people that work for us, but also in terms of our residents and the work we do in the communities that we work in. We've come up with a set of tangible outcomes which are available on our website of 10 points of what we can do to make our workplace more inclusive and consider the impacts of everything we do in terms of our services on equality, diversity and inclusion. We've been involved in a number of sector leading initiatives, a number of them aimed at increasing the ethnic diversity of our leadership, and that's something we've also been talking about quite a lot as an organisation over the last few weeks. There's then a question on parking permits, and obviously again we don't know where this person lives, but if somebody wanted to talk through our general approach to giving out residents parking permits and how we allocate those. Jerry or Gabriel?
Go on then, Gabriel.
Gabriel.
So over the last 2 years, we have 18 months ago, we appointed a parking contractor to manage all of our schemes where we have parking. And parking in those schemes differ depending on the scheme, how many parking spaces available and what the mix of tenures are. And essentially, one of the criteria for having a parking permit is that one shouldn't be in any rent arrears. And that is the main, one of the main criteria. There's only one car per household. And so where you have a situation where you've got limited spaces versus, you know, a very high number of requests, we have to put a system in place where we can allocate fairly. And this is always contentious because everybody wants to have a car. Everybody wants to have their car parked outside of their house, and it's not always possible. And so in these circumstances, we do have to, you know, put in place a set of parameters to be able to select those, you know, who qualify. It's as simple as that, really.
Thanks, Gabriel. There's a specific question coming in relation to a development in Hertford, which you might not know the details of, but the person there's saying that a lot of the people parking there, they think, are not actually residents of the flats. And is there a way that we can assess that, of people parking on verges and on the grass?
Okay, so I'm not aware of that one in particular, but I'm happy to investigate that further. If people are parking on the verges, it sounds like there isn't any parking control there. And maybe that's one of the starting points, because those people be ticketed. We should have a register of those people who own cars, and, you know, where they're identified as a persistent person who parks, you know, in an inconsiderate way, then a conversation will be had. But again, parking is very difficult. People want to park where they want to park. And if there are no parking contractors on site to manage that, then it does become unmanageable. But certainly I'm happy to look into that in more details.
Thanks, Gabriel. The next question is from Mr. Keenan, and I think there's two parts to this, which I'll handle the first of it, and then if I could come to Tabitha for the second. And so the first part of it is in relation to our resident boards, where we've got two resident panels, one for London and one for Hertfordshire and outside of London, saying that they're not representative or accountable. And I think it's just important to say here that our residents panels, we're not treating them as representatives of the 60,000 odd people who live in our homes. We're there because we're interested in getting the perspective of people that live in our homes who experience our services, and the way that can help us understand different issues and improve as an organisation. That every single one of you will be different, and so expecting somebody to represent you just isn't something that's feasible. We want to engage with as many residents who are interested in engaging with us through means like this, other things that we can do. There's lots of opportunities for people to get involved and shape our services and give us feedback, and there's lots of detail on that on our website, so we're really keen to do that. The second part of the question is in relation to electing people onto the board, and Mr. Kinney goes on to say that his employer elects staff. Obviously, public bodies have elections in terms of councillors or mayors, MPs, and saying that why does Network not interested in electing residents onto its board?
Coming to me?
Just going to Tabitha?
Yeah. So thanks for that. So I think at the current time, it's not something that we are actively picking up, but I take the point and we're listening to you this evening. I'm not saying that that's never not ever going to happen. It's something that we can have a think about and take forward. At the current time, obviously, as I said earlier, this is something that we have to consider on a skills and experience basis so that we can ensure that we're carrying out the best role that we can for the company, but also for you as residents. And so at the current time, this is the way that it is done. But hearing what you've got to say, thank you for those comments and duly noted.
Thanks, Tabitha. Gabriel, could we go to you to talk about the development at Hindon?
Thanks, Jamie. So Hindon is a scheme in Victoria, and we've had reports that people are having barbecues or smoking on the balconies. Now, this is a big issue at this moment in time, and it's something that we will not tolerate. There is a zero tolerance. And where we identify those who are having barbecues or smoking, we will have a conversation. We have sent a letter out in recent weeks with a warning to residents, and that's tenants and leaseholders, to warn them against having such activities. And this is something that Ed Badke alluded to in his presentation when we start talking about building safety. And we've seen tragic circumstances where people have been smoking or have been in a barbecue, and there have been terrible consequences. So this is something that we take very seriously. And where we get reports and we have the evidence, we will be having those conversations and possibly taking enforcement action with regards to the lease and with regards to the tenancy agreements, because both those documents specify that these things should not be taking place.
Thanks, Gabriel. The next question that we've got live is in relation to window quality, and it's not clear whether this is in relation to existing homes or new build homes. But perhaps if I come to Michael first to talk about our existing homes, and then maybe I could go to David in terms of talking about the standards that we put in place for new homes that we're building. Michael?
Thanks, Jamie. This one sounds to me like something we should be going out to visit. What I didn't touch on in the remobilisation of our services is that repair surveyors are able to attend properties. During lockdown, we have undertaken almost 60 surveys like this, where we've been asking residents to contact by FaceTime, etc. So we've been able to do that. This one sounds to me like something that we should send a contractor to or a surveyor. So I'd welcome the opportunity to for the residents who share that detail with us, and we can pop out and take a look. I'll pass you to David in terms of the development side.
Thank you, Michael. Just to say, the quality of our new homes is of paramount importance. We've got an ongoing review to ensure that we are building the best possible quality. We're getting regular feedback from our existing developments, lessons learned. We are very selective now as to which companies we work with. We have approved contractors for all of our new developments. And whilst in the past we may have done joint developments with private developers, we are now very selective as to which ones we would do repeat business with. So also be great to hear a bit more details about that particular query. But as I say, we're working very closely now with the asset management team and development team to make sure our new homes are of the highest quality.
I think we've got a specific question in terms of repairs that have been outstanding at a development at 243 Ealing Road for some time. Can I go to Michael on that, or? Okay, Michael.
Thanks, Jamie. There's been, as we know, at 243 Ealing Road, there has been ongoing issues, so there's no way of getting around that. There has been some legacy issues which we still understand are infrequently popping up. There has been a level of investment in the more frequent repairs in terms of entrance doors, and some of the cleaning and grounds have been hiked up. But I would welcome any feedback again from residents at 243 Ealing Road if there does continue to be frequent repairs that you see are not being repaired adequately. Then we can by all means get those looked at. We did, which is one of our sites that we will again be revisiting in terms of estate services, as Gabriel touched on. We recognise the amount of use at that site, so it is something that we'll be frequently visiting and making sure that repairs are completed promptly.
Thanks, Michael. The next question, taking them in order, is one in relation to extending parking permits near train stations. Gabriel, I don't know if there's anything to add to that, or if we've said everything you can on parking.
Well, now there's an interesting one: commuter traffic and parking. Wow. So yes, you know, if there is a scheme near a train station and we do find that there's a lot of commuters parking in those schemes, it's certainly something we'll look at. Absolutely, I have a lot of sympathy for those residents living in those kind of areas. So the answer is yes, happy to look at that.
Thanks, Gabriel. I'm going to come to David next with this question, which is someone's wants to know where they can access information regarding construction plans of the building that they live in, and so assuming it's relatively recent and that we have got it available. David, can you pick that up?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've set up little microsites on the website where we can obviously provide information. If it's about a particular single dwelling, again, if they can make contact with us, we can follow that up. But obviously we do have a wealth of information on all the buildings that we've constructed. They will be under warranty for a period of years with the original contractors, so happy to sort of share information.
Thanks, David. We've got two questions here that seem to have been combined, but I'm going to come to Ed as he might be able to answer both of them. One of them is in relation to whether we can reduce the need for door handles, particularly as we don't want lots of people touching the same thing when COVID-19 is still being transmitted in the community. And then another one specifically about Capital Way and poorly maintained gardens. Is that, can you pick that up, Ed?
Yeah, I can, Jamie. So thank you for that. The best thing I thought I could start with is actually where we've started the remediation work on projects. Prior to that, we've been through a pretty exhaustive process with our contractors. So if you look specifically at Capital Way, I mean, I went there on last week, I think it was Tuesday. Everybody who goes onto the site gets temperature tested. Everybody then, if your temperature isn't above a normal parameter, then you're allowed to continue to work. We've got COVID marshals actually on the development itself, monitoring the workforce. And I think this is another example. I mean, our health and safety is like right up there at the top of our priority list. In this instance, though, it's important that we also look after the health and safety of our contractors as well as our residents. So on Capital Way, we've got a pretty rigorous regime in place, so like hand washing, the cleaning regime's been upped significantly since the works have restarted. So I accept the point about handles on doors, and I'm not sure, I don't have the answer tonight. I don't know what the answer is actually, to be honest. It's something that actually we'll take away and reflect on. And we've got to understand how COVID probably is passed on, because ultimately people need to open the door, Jamie, to get through. So there is a way they need to touch it. But let me take that one away and see if there's something we can do to respond. In terms of the gardens, then I think I'll probably take that up with probably Jerry and his team about the garden maintenance. And next time I'm down there, I'll have a look myself.
Thanks, Ed. We've got 3 more questions live. There might be time for maybe 1 or 2 more if we're going to finish in about 5 minutes time. This next one's going to come to Gabriel, and it's in relation to somebody who lives at 63 Station Grove, which of course Gabriel might not know as a development, but having people coming from outside and putting rubbish in their bins, them overflowing, and that causing a problem with rats and smell. And so, Gabriel, if you don't know the specific development, could you just say our general approach to a situation like that?
Thanks, Jamie. Rather unfortunately, this is a common problem in and around our schemes, and that is why we tend to increase our inspection regime in order, number 1, to make sure there isn't an overspill, and number 2, to see what inquiries we can put in place to actually find out who's doing it. It's very difficult. Very often these people are coming at the dead of night to do their naughty business and go away again, and it's a big problem that's causing us big problems. So I don't know 63 Session Grove specifically, but again, I'm happy to investigate that further. But we do have regimes in place where we do inspect on a regular basis, and we will continue to do that to eradicate the problem.
Thanks, Gabriel. I'm going to come to David on this one first, and then someone who waves at me if they want second, in relation to cycling. And so in relation to our new builds, I come to David. Just with the government encouraging cycling, what more can we do in terms of safe bike stands? And somebody saying that needs to be locked facilities, not just simply posts outside, which could be subject to theft. David, first?
Yeah. I think in terms of our new homes pipeline, we are very closely with the local authorities, the police, to design secure cycle racks within developments, and that's given a lot of prominence now as we do less car parking provision. I guess the challenge we've got across the network is that for our existing developments, many of those wouldn't have had that designed 10, 20 years ago. So to do retrofitting of secure cycle stands may be more challenging.
Thanks, David. If I'm going to come to Michael on this next one, which is in relation to whether current residents get priority on new build, for example, if they require a bigger space, or does everybody just apply in the same process?
Thanks, Jamie. Yes, we're certainly aware of some of the needs of our residents where there is a pressure on the amount of occupants in the home. We look to do everything we can to work with them and the local authorities to scale where we can within our new developments. But are we in a position to give first priority? No, because as part of the development agreements in place, obviously we have got agreements with our local authorities to house those most in need in the borough, and not just our residents within our homes currently.
Thanks, Michael. Sorry, I'm getting my. So yeah, the penultimate question I think I've got is why does Network Homes allow scaffolding to stay up for weeks after completions of works? I think Michael's indicating he'd like to come in on that again.
Thanks again. With regards to our scaffold, our partner contractors do send in daily and weekly logs of all the scaffold we've got in place. We understand that it can be somewhat of an eyesore, but it's a great question, and I can understand why that may be the impression in terms of cost. That's not the case. We pay for scaffold by a square metre, so it's not time consistent, and the reason we do that is also to ensure that we can post-inspect works within a timely fashion. It sounds to me with this case, if it's been up for too many weeks after the work's complete, we should probably be doing better there. But to answer the question specifically, no, we don't pay any more for that. It's we pay for the amount of scaffold that's installed.
Thanks, Michael. And so we've tipped 5 minutes over. We started 5 minutes late, so I think I'm going to take this as the last question. And I don't know the answer, so it might not be easily resolved either. But it's a question about, can doors and lifts be numbered so that it's easy to report repairs in developments? And absent anyone waving at me, I'll come to David if there's anything we can say about new builds and numbering as much of the common parts as possible.
Yeah, I think we would definitely like to improve that sort of wayfinding within all of our developments. So I think what Jerry mentioned earlier, I think, or Michael, was just that, again, that remote technology we're using now to make sure we can track problems. Again, I think that's one of the things which we can do a bit of a review on existing schemes with residents and then build that into our sort of new homes pipeline.
Thanks, David. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up there then. Thanks very much for everyone who's submitted questions and been listening to us. Thank you very much for bearing with us with the technical difficulties before we started, and taking a little bit of time before we got to the question and answer. We'll definitely reflect on it as attendees and work out how things like this could work better in future, but also really interested in your feedback on how valuable this was to you, how it could be made more useful, or any other suggestions you've got of how you might engage with us. We're really keen to do more engagement and make it meaningful and useful to all of you. So thank you very much to everyone for your time tonight, and I'll hopefully see you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.